Hey guys, it's Kevin with Mix Coach. This is another episode of the Mix Coach Minute, and this is actually a bonus episode. Stone and I were talking after the last few episodes, and we struck up another question that I wanted to answer. So, Stone, ask away.
So Kevin, this is a nice, short and sweet one. What is the biggest mistake that young mixers make?
In my opinion, and because I've seen hundreds and hundreds of mixes now come through Mix Coach Member, the biggest and first mistake most young mixers make is they overlook balance and they go straight to controlling balance with a limiter or a compressor. I have a member on Mix Coach who he came to me and wanted to know, how can I improve my mixes? I feel like I'm not improving. So we started back at the beginning. I said, here is a mix that I know for a fact doesn't need a lot of plugins. It's the mix that we're working on this month, Stone, called Falling in Love with a Girl. I said, I want you to mix this, and I want you to send it back to me with no plugins whatsoever, not even a master fader. I want you to send me the mix balanced the way you want it to be balanced. And what I found out was that um, his his balancing skills hadn't been, they were at a deficit because he was so concerned with using the plugins.
Oh
So
wow.
it's so easy
Mm,
to it's so easy to go to the plugins because you want to know how those cool compressor sounds. And you
yeah.
hear Chris Lord Alge talking about, or Chris Lord Alge talking about his 1176s and the Fairchilds and things like that. But what you have to do is you have to realize that I learned to mix, Chris learned to mix, and to put myself in the same sentence with him is almost sacrilege. But everybody from my age and down or and up learned to mix with maybe two compressors total. We didn't
Wow.
have unlimited compressors. So what you had to do is you had to put it down right, first of all, but you had to balance it. And you had to make sure that the balance stayed balanced with your fingers and your automation if you had the luxury of having automation. But I think what a lot of young mixers do today is they overlook basic balance of tracks. And it's great questions. The reason I think of this is because you asked such great questions about balance of drums. We didn't
Mm,
talk about limiters and compressors and parallel compression and things like that. We talked about balance of drums, and I told you how that it's a moving target.
mm,
And it may be a less of a moving target with limiters and compressors and things like that on drums. But one thing that gets overlooked that a lot of young mixers need to pay attention to is get the blend right without any compressors and then
mm,
move on from there. I mean, I think that minimalist mixing is probably something we're going to try next month on Mix Coach Member, where I'm
mm.
going to, well, I'll just go ahead and say it now. Next month on Mix Coach Member, we're mixing a jazz song. Jazz songs don't typically need a lot of parallel compression and high PEQ. They need to be balanced. So the
Mm.
challenge next month on Mix Coach Member is going to be one channel strip per channel if you need that,
Wow.
and one reverb. So
Mm.
so there won't be stacking compressors, even though that's something that I have taught before. We're going to get back to the basics of mixing, and I think people are going to realize on Mix Coach Member and whoever else participates that balancing is really it's a critical piece of knowledge to know if you want to be a great
Mm.
mixer. So,
Can I just say something on that as well? I really appreciate the insight because I have a very dear friend of mine who actually was an engineer at Abbey Road when the Beatles were
wow,
making all their records, and he engineered and produced some Paul McCartney albums, stuff like that.
wow,
And he always tells me, he says, you know, when I was learning to be an engineer, he would say we were called balancing engineers. And he said the engineers we learnt from were still of the type that came in with their white coats on because they saw it as a scientific thing. But he said
right,
all we were doing was just balancing faders, and a mix was just a balance. You know,
right.
and like you said, there was a maybe a compressor or two around, but you know, a lot of the records that he works on in that, and a lot of the records from that whole era were just about capturing it in the recording and then just a great balance.
Well, I couldn't say it any better than that.
Mm.
So that's a great question, Stone. Thank you for asking it. And if you guys get a chance, you want to get involved in next month's mix. With it's going to be a minimalist approach to a mix. We're going to mix a jazz song from a friend of mine, and we're going to mix with one channel strip, one EQ, and or one compressor on each channel. And that's if you need it. And then we're going to see how much better the mixes sound. So check out Mix Coach Member, and we'll see you tomorrow.